Hey guys, this is Paul from Hot and Humid Hydroponics. It is January 20th, and I just went through probably the two coldest days so far in the year. The lows around 7 a.m. and 6 a.m. this morning were around 30, I think I recorded around 37 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty brutal on tomatoes across the board and just about every plant out there except for like maybe lettuces and so forth, and some other vegetables. But for tomatoes and fruiting variety type stuff, it's not really good. However, there was some frost on the ground, but I have not seen any damage to my plants whatsoever. Now, I'm going to attribute that to probably a couple of different things here. Number one, I'm not exactly on the ground. As you can see underneath my system here, everything is elevated, so maybe that gave me a little bit of clearance there. Plus, I was running my system 24/7 with a 300 watt heater, so the roots didn't exactly get frost temperature. Now, frost can affect a plant a couple of different ways. If the actual roots themselves get down into the lower temperatures, from what I heard from Rick Breckenridge over at Wormsway Hydroponics yesterday, that could be the death knell to tomatoes. However, with the fact that I am warming my reservoir, and I think it's holding it around 50, which still isn't pleasant, but it's not deadly to tomatoes. During the nighttime, it's keeping about 15 to 20 degrees above whatever the nighttime low is, depending on how I'm running it. But it's working. It's keeping things from freezing. So or frost point. So I'll appreciate that. They're looking a little rough. It looks pretty good from up here. But when you start getting up on top of it, you can start to see that although I've got plenty of fruit, and I think this season again has gone through, and I've been pretty successful, I'm starting to see the signs of tomato yellow leaf curl virus. So I've talked about this in a couple of videos, but here's some older lush foliage. You're seeing some of the white stuff on there right now because I just sprayed some antifungal. But you're also seeing this lighting, small yellow leaves. That is true to tomato yellow leaf curl virus. And what that is caused by whitefly. Whitefly is a vectoring sucking insect. It actually is a true bug. And what it will do is it will suck, get a virus from an infected plant, and it passes it to tomatoes. It goes, I think it can affect potatoes. That's how the actual, so potatoes can be affected, peppers can be affected, some peppers, and tomatoes obviously are affected badly down here in Florida. They were first discovered, I believe, in 1995 or 1998, don't get me wrong, in Florida. And when they were, I think they came from some other country, just like everything else does, right? So what ends up happening here is that the insect bites the stem, and it affects everything from the new growth up. It affects your fruit size and your leaf size, and obviously if it's a very young plant, that could be pretty much the end of the plant itself. These plants were very, very large and lots of good solid mature leaves on there, so the fruiting wasn't terribly affected. But if I were halfway through my season, not at the end of my season, this could have really shrank my fruit size and messed with my yields and so forth. The plant size is this. I mean, this bar right here, guys, I'm 5'7". My head literally comes right up to this bar, and that's probably another 3 feet on top of there. So, you know, as long as you're not counting the roots and everything, I probably get about 5 or 6 feet of tomatoes, maybe 7 feet at the highest point. And that goes all the way across over here. So, I mean, as far as from foliage, this looks impressive, but the more I'm researching and the more I'm seeing, I think a lot of more energy would have been better spent if I would have just clipped back a lot of this foliage. The problem is, though, is that as it's growing so rapidly and you got things to do, etc., it's hard to keep on track of it. So I kind of let it go this season. Next season's gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna be on top of it, like, as best as I possibly can. And I'm only honestly gonna probably grow this section in tomatoes. I'm gonna dedicate this reservoir and this section tomatoes. I get the best light over here for tomatoes. And then I'm gonna pretty much keep everything over from this area over here for the spring to summer season for maybe some peppers in the center there. But most likely, I think I'm just gonna stick with cucumbers and some different varieties of beans. My beans did very well at the end. You can't even see them over there, and they eventually just kind of gave up the ghost because The tomatoes were overwhelming them. There is one plant in there and it's starting to flower, but I'll be yanking that. It's starting fresh here. Overall, just to kind of a recap, these right here were the garden treasures from the University of Florida. They're putting on these nice, huge, medium-sized tomatoes. They're just about to go, and just from reference, that's my hand. So I've gotten a couple of 10-ounce tomatoes out of there. That's pretty big. Not huge whoppers. They're not designed to be these large ones. They're designed around really marketable sized tomatoes. So very pretty, very nice, but ultimately not massive. But that's perfect because that's exactly the size the tomato is wanting. The Garden Gems were extremely prolific this season. These are also a very small clustering variety of tomato. They got pretty nice in size. Again, perfect for just lots of flesh, perfect for pasting and just overall slicing. They were very, very delicious. I gotta say, these were probably the best tasting tomatoes I had all season. However, the Garden Gems, by far, were probably the most disease prone. Well, I'm not disease prone, but mold prone. They did not do very well to early blight. I battled that, and I'm now probably in the beginning stages of some late blight. I'm not terribly concerned about it because we're at the end of the season, and we're going to get some really cool nights here, and I just don't think these tomatoes are going to make it. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing this video right now, but so it doesn't look so bad that if I waited a week from now. Now, one of the more interesting tomatoes I grew this season, again, more tomato yellow leaf curl virus, was the Sanchacola. This was supposed to be a cherry tomato. This has put out a prolific amount of tomatoes. This was the first to show signs of the TYLCV, okay, tomato yellow leaf curl virus. This one probably passed it on to the rest. I held on to it because I didn't want to lose it, and I wasn't quite sure if everything else was going to get it. Eventually, the other ones got it. Next season, if I get something like this, I'm probably going to yank it. I made the gamble. I said, you know what? If I keep on top of the sprays, there's going to be no problems. And I did keep on top of the sprays. And the thing is with tomato yellow leaf curl virus, ladies and gentlemen, is that one bite is all it takes on an unprotected side of a leaf. And if that whitefly gets it, the plant is going to catch the virus. The viral load is one bite. It's not like it has to have multiple bites, which would make a huge difference in resistance and tolerance. Next season, I'm not actually doing the Garden Gems or the Garden Treasures, although they were very successful. I am going to wait until probably the fall again to do those. Why? Because with the spring and summer, you're going to get more insects, and I've decided to go with the University of Texas new Tycoon seeds I've been talking about on some of the forums that I've been working on, and I actually bought some in bulk and spread the love out a little bit here. And they have a strong and high resistance or tolerance. I'm not quite sure one. I know that, again, going back to some things I've just learned, there's a difference between resistance and tolerance, and that, thank you very much again, Worm's Way over there in Tampa, Florida, for explaining that to me. I'll have to do some research, but it is probably the strongest tomato. Also, the tomato will be resistant to Fusarium wilt, series 1 and 2, well, versions 1 and 2, and then there was nematodes. You don't really see nematode problems, obviously, because I'm not dealing with soil, but for those who are working in soil and you have nematode problems, that would be a very good tomato to go with. Again, that is the Tycoon tomato variety. It's a hybrid seed. They're not cheap. They go for about 25 for 10. You can go to a couple different places to look at it, but they're just, again, it's not a cheap seed. So, but I will be trying those because I just don't want to deal with tomato yellow leaf curl virus. Now, there are some cherry tomato varieties out there that are also very resistant to early blight. Guess what? With early blight, I can deal with that if I'm on top of my antifungal, and that'll do a whole lot better. But again, going back to the yellow leaf curl virus, one bite, one kill, that's too much risk for me. Moving along to San Marzanos. I know it's a little dark in here. It's a little in the evening tonight. But these tomatoes have been also very prolific. I've got some massive ones in here. I'm going to try to get in here. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. But, yeah, there you go. A lot of nice tomatoes. More Garden Gems over here. These were tomatoes that I lost track of. Ended up just planting them anyways, and they ended up being Sanchacolias and also the Garden Gem variety as well. As far as Dutch budget goes, the system ran really good this season. I've got really no complaints. Last season, I was really almost crying because I put so much time and effort and money into this thing, and it didn't really put out in the 2015 March to spring summer time frame. But with some minor tweaks, it did very well. The big one was adding potassium silicate. I've mentioned that over and over again. I cannot stress that enough, how important that has been, not only for adding more potassium for my tomatoes, which I had excellent flowering this year, but also the carrying a bacterial, a beneficial bacteria from Aquascape, which is actually used in ponds, but it's so cheap when you use it in thimblefuls that I went with it as a try, and I did not get any root rot. No signs of root rot whatsoever. I must have got root rot 3 times last season, and eventually it's what took my plants out. So what am I going to do with the rest of them? Well, I'm probably going to put a reservoir right there and loop everything in so that I can keep everything else separated. I found that one thing, tomatoes are kind of like teenagers. They eat a lot, and you're not quite sure what they're going to put out, and they really, really do require a lot of maintenance. And although I had a successful season, having this many tomatoes was so much work that I put these in almost a month ago, and I have not even got a chance to put these in. I mean, I only get so many hours at night. I'm a working man with 3 children, and like everybody else, time is limited. So I have 3 towers that I wanted to get set up, but I just have not even got a chance to work on them. So this is Paul from Hot and Humid Hydroponics. I'm really encouraging everybody to get out there and just do it. There are some really beautiful videos out there, lots of YouTube videos on what you want to do. The guys on the Hot and Humid Hydroponics, Eric Heimel and Paul Lays, are coming together with some really neat ideas. I'd really encourage you guys to go check it out. It is a public group, but you have to be approved to get on it. So if you haven't signed up, go ahead to Hot and with the letter N, Humid Hydroponics, and you could go ahead and ask the permission to go sign up. If you have any questions or any concerns, just private message me. Again, my name is Paul Cilia, and again, I want to wish you guys all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful 2016 gardening season.